I guess it just worries me that you come more from the Liz Cheney wing of the party than the Donald Trump wing of the party.
Senator, I am squarely with the president, have been with him in every single election I participated in, and him with me.
Mike Waltz is President Trump's pick for United Nations ambassador. Today, he testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in a confirmation hearing. This is Waltz's second job in the Trump administration after being dismissed in May as a national security advisor. Waltz is also Trump's second pick for UN ambassador after Rep. Stefanik was asked to remain in Congress due to a razor-thin margin of GOP seats. Here are the top moments from his testimony.
Were you investigated for this disclosure of sensitive operational information on Signal?
Thank you, Senator. And that engagement was driven by and recommended by the Cyber Security Infrastructure Security Agency, by the Biden administration, CISA guidance.
I'm sorry.
And I have here, just the use of Signal.
Share information on Signal.
The use of, the use of Signal is not only as an encrypted app, is not only authorized, it was recommended in Biden's, the Biden era CISA guidance. And in fact, if you just, it says here, I'll read it to you. Use only end-to-end encrypted communications. Adopt a free messaging application to secure communications that guarantees end-to-end encryption, particularly if you are a highly targeted individual, such as Signal or similar apps. CISA recommends end-to-end encryption messaging on both government and personal devices.
For sensitive military
of course, Senator. There was no classified information exchange.
For sensitive military this, you were sharing details about an upcoming airstrike and the time of launch and the potential targets. I mean, this was demonstrably sensitive information. And the question I asked was, were you investigated for this expansion of the Signal group to include a journalist?
The White House conducted an investigation, and my understanding is the Department of Defense is still conducting an investigation.
Was any disciplinary action taken?
From the White House investigation, Senator?
Yes.
No, the use of Signal was not only authorized, it's still authorized and highly recommended.
Would you recommend the use of Signal for classified information to be shared between folks who have access to?
Again, we followed the recommendation, almost the demand, to use end-to-end encryption, but there was no classified information shared.
Did you speak to Secretary Hegseth about his decision to share detailed information on the specifics of an imminent military strike?
What we spoke about, Senator, was a highly successful mission that did something that the Biden administration did not do, was actually target the Houthi leadership. We subsequently saw a ceasefire, an increase in shipping, and a drop in attacks on our ships.
Well, look, here's what I hear on this exchange, and I want to get to the UN point. At the time, you took responsibility for having added a journalist inadvertently to a Signal chat. But it doesn't seem to me that the administration's taken any action to make sure this doesn't happen again. There's been no consequences, and yet the president continues to denounce those who leak information. We both know Signal is not a secure way to convey classified information. And I was hoping to hear from you that you had some sense of regret over sharing what was very sensitive, timely information about a military strike on a commercially available app that's not, as we both know, the appropriate way to share such critical information.
Again, Senator, I think where we have a fundamental disagreement is there was no classified information on that chat.
Should Congress force President Trump to analyze such vague terms as justice before removing troops from a war zone? I mean, I don't understand how you could have voted for this amendment.
Senator, I look forward to continuing our discussion that we had. There's a lot of room in between where we have troops and necessarily if we're at war. So, for example, we've had troops in Colombia for quite some time. They're not actively engaged in combat. They're engaged in a training mission to help that government through our presence on the ground.
Afghanistan was
and
one of the
so
rare
I think
times.
one of the things at the time
Afghanistan
the president
was one of the
looking
rare
to do
times
was
when Congress actually had authorized we voted for an authorization of force. It's one of the few times I can think of in recent history I would have actually supported that resolution. Congress voted to send the troops to Afghanistan to get the people who attacked us on 9/11, and yet you were willing to, in a war zone where soldiers were at war, place restrictions on the president's ability to move troops around based on women's access to voting. There's also another clause in there that said based on how well the Afghans were dealing with disabilities. Look, I have a great deal for people with disabilities. That's a big issue in our country, but it really isn't an issue of war. And to hamstring and tie President Trump's hands and say, oh, well, you can't remove, troops until we discuss how well the Afghan government is dealing with disabilities. Are they going to be able to deal with disabilities when we go? I guess it just worries me that you come more from the Liz Cheney wing of the party than the Donald Trump wing of the party.
Senator, I am squarely with the president, have been with him in every single election I participated in, and him with me in terms of the limits on hard power. And I can tell you for certain that people who hate war the most are the people that have to go fight them and die from them. I have many of them with me, and I never want to attend another funeral, and I certainly support the president's diplomacy first, as I know you do, approach, as we just saw in the Middle East, his commercial diplomacy that we're seeing around the world, and will do everything I can, if confirmed as ambassador of the United Nations, to keep us out of wars and to end conflict.
Why did you believe that it advanced U.S. national security interests to shut down our most important agencies that try to win the information war, which is a war that, whether we like it or not, exists in this world, and we're not fighting it today while our adversaries are?
Thank you for the question, and I think we're in violent agreement that we have to win the information war. We may have a disagreement on the best way to do that. What we did not see were the metrics, were the actual results. As you mentioned, we're getting, in many ways outpaced in the information space, yet for decades we've had these entities that have become expensive and have become quite bloated. I think the best way to block and tackle our adversaries abroad is through our amazing private sector, through innovation, through what we're seeing in our leadership role in AI and in other spaces. And so as the president, as the secretary looked across the interagency and those entities, they made those decisions.
But the private sector isn't going to fight Russian and Chinese propaganda around the world, right? I mean, that has to be an essential function of U.S. national security policy, correct?
Well, what they are going to do is show the power of free markets, the power of entrepreneurship, and show really the power of the U.S. In terms of a free society and with our values.
We're going to rely on Disney?
I think we're actually more aligned than what you think. I think what we were looking at is the actual effectiveness. It's the tool that we questioned, and then the president, the secretary, made a decision to reallocate resources.
Listen, I hope the administration does rethink this if they've got a better idea on how to try to project power in the information space. Then I think we're all willing to hear it.
This morning it was reported, despite being removed from your role as National Security Advisor in May, removed from your role, right? Not working. Surprisingly, you've been on the White House payroll for the last few months. So throughout this hearing, you've made assertions that, if confirmed, you would root out waste and unnecessary overhead at the UN. So can you confirm for us whether you've been receiving a salary from the White House since being let go at the NSA?
Thank you, Senator. I was not fired. The president never said that, nor did the vice president. I was kept on as an advisor, transitioning a number of important activities, and now hope to be confirmed with the Senate's consent.
So you're saying that you were not
to
dismissed
be
from your
UN.
role, as was publicly reported, because it's also been publicly reported that you've been receiving almost $200,000 of the taxpayer money since you were dismissed from being the National Security Advisor.
Well, the reporting, Senator, is fake news, which shouldn't surprise anyone. The president was clear. His announcement was, I will nominate
fake news
Mr.
can't be the
Waltz, and then
answer
the
to
vice president
everything.
was quite clear.
So we're going to
that
move on to
For more clips like this, stay tuned to Congress Clips. And thanks for watching.